The galaxy was vast, filled with thousands of worlds, each proud of its strength and history. Yet there was one small planet that whispered fear into every council hall, one world marked in red on every star map. Its name was Earth. The aliens did not speak of it openly, but when its name came up in reports, silence always followed. They had no clear record of why Earth was feared, only fragments of stories, warnings, and the strange classification that put it in the category of Deathworld. To most species, the label was just a term for dangerous planets, but Earth was different. Earth was unique. And when the war began, everyone understood why. The conflict did not start with humans. It began when the Zerth Dominion, one of the oldest empires in the galaxy, sought to claim Earth as just another colony. To them, humans looked weak. They had smaller fleets, no advanced weapons, and no empire to defend them. The Zerth thought the war would end in days. They sent one of their largest armadas to orbit the blue planet, expecting surrender before the first week was over. But the first surprise came quickly. The Zerth soldiers who landed on Earth reported storms that tore apart dropships, forests, so alive that vines moved like traps, and animals that hunted in ways no other world had seen. Their armor cracked under pressure from creatures no bigger than a man's hand. Insects, microbes, even the air itself seemed hostile. Yet the strangest thing was not Earth's nature, it was the humans living in it. The commanders laughed at first. How could fragile, soft-skinned bipeds survive in a place where war machines rusted in days, where storms bent metal and predators circled every night? But the humans had adapted. They had built cities across mountains that shook with quakes. They had learned to fight beasts with nothing but stone and fire. Their bodies carried scars from their own planet long before they faced aliens. They were not fragile. They were forged. The war became a lesson for the galaxy. When the Zerth marched into human territory, they found no fear. The humans fought with weapons that were crude by galactic standards, but they fought with a willpower the invaders had never seen. They bled, they fell, and they stood again. Every loss made them fight harder. Every strike they endured only sharpened their spirit. A battle near the Amazon proved unforgettable. The Dominion forces tried to burn the rainforest to force humans out, but the fire spread faster than they predicted, turning the battlefield into a wall of flames. Most armies would retreat. The humans did not. They used the fire as cover, slipping through smoke, striking from shadows. Soldiers who had never feared anything found themselves hunted by men and women who moved like predators born in chaos. Survivors of that battle spoke of eyes shining in the firelight, and the sound of human war cries that echoed louder than the blaze. The council halls across the galaxy were shaken when reports came back. The Zerth had expected victory in 1 week. Instead, months passed, and their fleets were bleeding resources. Earth's gravity tore apart their machines faster than expected. Their soldiers grew sick from Earth's viruses while humans seemed to walk through plagues without pause. Even the ground fought back, with quakes and storms tearing through bases. It became clear that Earth was not just another world. It was a proving ground where only the toughest survived. But the greatest shock was not Earth's storms or beasts. It was the humans themselves. They had a strange way of turning suffering into strength. Where one fell, another picked up his weapon. Where a city burned, the survivors rebuilt within weeks. No other species in the council had seen such resilience. It was as if humans did not understand defeat. One alien commander wrote in his final report before retreating, "It is not Earth that is the death world. It is the humans who are born from it. They are the reason this planet is feared." To them, survival is not just instinct, it is identity. His ship never returned. Whispers spread quickly. The Dominion tried to silence them, but the galaxy already knew. Stories traveled of humans running into storms, swimming in oceans that killed machines, climbing mountains with bare hands, and laughing in the face of hunger. To other species, it was madness. To humans, it was life. The war that began as a conquest turned into a warning. The galaxy learned something it had long forgotten. Strength is not built from comfort, but from struggle. Earth was feared, not because of its beasts, its storms, or its poison air. Earth was feared because it created humans. And humans were the one thing the galaxy could never tame. Asterisk. The Zerf Dominion had never suffered humiliation before. For centuries, they had conquered weaker races with little resistance. But Earth was a wound that refused to heal. Their fleets limped home with losses greater than victories. Their soldiers carried scars not from human weapons, but from the very land itself. Yet the Dominion refused to give up. They called in reinforcements, entire legions of warships, determined to crush this stubborn world once and for all. On the other side, the humans did not wait. They knew they were outnumbered, outgunned, and technologically behind. But where most civilizations would beg for peace, humanity prepared. Leaders gathered in underground bunkers, soldiers drilled in abandoned factories, and scientists worked with desperation in hidden labs. Humanity had no empire, but it had something stronger: unity born from the knowledge that if they lost, their species would vanish. When the Dominion Armada returned, the humans greeted them not with fear, but with fire. Guerrilla tactics spread across continents. Every city became a trap. Streets were wired with explosives. Rivers were poisoned for the invaders. The skies filled with drones made from scrap metal and stolen technology. To the Dominion, it looked like chaos. But to the humans, it was organized. Resistance carried out with ruthless precision. In Europe, a squad of Dominion troopers advanced into what looked like an abandoned village. They laughed at the silence, thinking the humans had fled. Then the ground exploded beneath them. The attackers were buried under rubble as human fighters emerged from tunnels, striking hard and vanishing again. The survivors reported that humans did not fight like soldiers, they fought like the planet itself, using everything around them as a weapon. What frightened the Dominion most was not the weapons. It was the humans' ability to adapt. Within weeks, captured alien rifles were dismantled, copied, and rebuilt into crude but deadly versions. Human pilots learned how to hijack Dominion fighters and use them against their own fleets. Farmers who had never seen war became snipers in forests. Children grew up listening to sirens, yet their eyes burned with determination. This was not a population under siege, it was a species born for survival. The galaxy watched closely. Other empires, curious and cautious, sent spies to observe. What they saw sent shivers through council chambers. Humans were not just fighting, they were learning at terrifying speed. Every defeat became a lesson. Every setback made them stronger. In a few short months, the humans had turned from prey into predators. The turning point came during the Battle of the Pacific. The Dominion deployed a warship the size of a city, armed with weapons that could level entire coastlines. The humans had no ship large enough to face it. Instead, they swarmed it with hundreds of smaller vessels, fishing boats, turned into explosive rafts, submarines armed with stolen alien torpedoes, and even aircraft strapped with bombs. The great warship fired once, twice, destroying dozens, but the humans kept coming. They were willing to sacrifice everything if it meant taking down the giant. In the end, the ocean itself swallowed the Dominion ship as humans detonated charges. Beneath it, ripping its hull apart, the galaxy was stunned. No one had ever seen a species so reckless, so fearless, and yet so effective. Reports described humans as mad warriors who charge into death with smiles, and the term spread across networks. Soon, whispers of Earth's new reputation traveled. Faster than Dominion propaganda, but humans were not only fighters, they were thinkers. In hidden labs, engineers began combining alien technology with human creativity. What they lacked in resources, they replaced with imagination. The Dominion had never considered using certain alloys in weapons, But humans discovered new ways to strengthen them. Alien engines were rebuilt with human modifications that increased speed. What the Dominion called primitive tinkering soon became deadly innovations. One Dominion general, furious after another loss, screamed in his report, "They should not exist. No species should grow stronger the longer they fight." But humanity did. Every drop of blood spilled became fuel for the next victory. The Council of Worlds, once dismissive of Earth, began urgent debates. Some argued that the humans must be protected, brought into the galactic community before they became too dangerous. Others demanded that Earth be destroyed completely before the infection of their willpower spread. But no one could agree, for everyone feared the same thing. The humans were proving that even a species from a Deathworld could rise to challenge empires. Among the humans, no one thought of themselves as heroes. They were simply fighting for home, for families, for survival. But without knowing it, they were teaching the galaxy a lesson. The lesson that power was not in weapons, but in the spirit of those who refused to bow. The Dominion still pressed on, desperate to break Earth, but the truth was already loose across the stars. Earth was not just a death world in name. It was a place that created warriors unlike any other. And the galaxy was beginning to realize that if humanity ever looked beyond its own skies, no empire would ever be safe again. The war dragged on, and the Dominion expected humans to break. Empires across the galaxy waited for Earth to finally collapse, for its people to surrender under endless fire. But instead of silence, the galaxy heard something else. Human voices rose through broken radios, through captured frequencies, through speeches made to crowds in ruins. They spoke of hope, of survival, of standing together. These words spread faster than the Dominion's weapons. The humans had discovered something the aliens did not understand. It was not just survival. They had the power to inspire each other. In the ruins of New York, people gathered in the streets as leaders spoke through old speakers, telling them that Earth belonged to no empire. In the deserts of Africa, soldiers who had nothing left still sang war songs at night, their voices carrying over the sand. In the frozen lands of Siberia, families carved messages of defiance into walls for future generations to see. Wherever the Dominion struck, humans found a way to remind each other they were not alone. The Dominion could destroy buildings, but they could not destroy the human spirit. And the galaxy was watching closely. Species who had always feared the Dominion now began to whisper of humans as symbols of resistance. Some even smuggled supplies to Earth, breaking Dominion law. To them, humans were dangerous, but they were also proof that empires could be challenged. What confused the aliens most was humanity's strange relationship with pain. Other species avoided suffering at all costs, but humans seemed to embrace it. When soldiers were injured, they bound their wounds and returned to battle. When families lost their homes, they rebuilt on the ruins. When death struck, the living carried the memory forward as strength. To aliens, this was madness. To humans, it was normal. The turning point came during the siege of Beijing. Dominion forces surrounded the city with war machines and demanded surrender. The people refused. For weeks, humans fought with little food and almost no ammunition. Every street became a barricade, every building a fortress. When the Dominion finally broke through, expecting victory, they were met with civilians, men, women, even children throwing fire, stones, and stolen rifles. The Dominion withdrew, shaken not by human weapons, but by their endless will to fight. Survivors spoke of human eyes burning with defiance, eyes that refused to lower even in the Vaza shadow of death. The council chambers of the galaxy grew restless. Reports from spies painted humans as something new, something unpredictable. They are not the strongest, one alien wrote, but they fight as if they have nothing to lose. That makes them unstoppable. Another report warned, if humans Survive this war. They will not remain on Earth. They will spread. And when they spread, the galaxy will never be the same. The Dominion grew desperate. They unleashed biological weapons meant to wipe out entire regions, but Earth itself betrayed them. The viruses mutated in strange ways, striking back at Dominion soldiers while humans endured with stubborn immunity. Dominion war machines rusted in Earth's air. Their great fortresses sank into mud during storms. It was as if the planet itself rejected their presence. And yet, it was not Earth alone. It was humanity's ability to turn disaster into victory. Farmers in South America converted irrigation tunnels into traps. Students in Asia hacked into Dominion communication systems, turning orders into confusion. Even prisoners of war broke free, organizing ambushes with stolen rifles. The Dominion was not just fighting armies, they were fighting every human alive. Stories spread of incredible feats. A pilot who guided a burning plane into an enemy carrier, sacrificing himself to destroy it. A medic who carried wounded soldiers through firestorms, refusing to leave anyone behind. A group of villagers who lured Dominion patrols into swamps and drowned them with nothing but ropes and determination. These were not legends. These were real humans, and the galaxy listened in awe. Fear turned into respect. Respect turned into admiration, and admiration turned into warning. The Council of Worlds debated endlessly. Some wanted to help Earth, hoping to earn humanity's friendship. Others demanded Earth be destroyed before its people reached the stars. But one thing united them all: no one could ignore humans anymore. Back on Earth, humanity still saw itself as struggling, wounded, and cornered. They did not yet realize the galaxy was watching with wide eyes. To them, every day was simply survival. To the galaxy, it was history being written. The Dominion began to fracture. Commanders argued, soldiers deserted, and entire fleets hesitated to engage. They had thought Earth would be easy. Instead, Earth became a nightmare. For every human who fell, 10 more rose with fury. For every city that burned, another became stronger. The Dominion had awakened something they could not control. The galaxy whispered a truth no one wanted to admit. Earth was not feared because of its storms, its beasts, or its harsh skies. Earth was feared because it gave birth to humans. And humans, once awakened, could never be stopped. The Dominion had poured everything into the war. Entire fleets were sent to Earth, legions of soldiers deployed, and weapons never before tested were unleashed. Yet nothing gave them the victory they expected. Instead, the galaxy watched an empire begin to crumble under the weight of one small planet. Humans were not stronger in numbers, not superior in technology, but they had something far more dangerous: imagination. Every new threat from the Dominion became fuel for human creativity. When the invaders used shields to block bullets, humans designed weapons that pierced with heat and pressure. When ships dominated the skies, humans dragged them down with traps built from steel cables and explosive mines. When the Dominion unleashed towering war machines, humans swarmed them like ants, climbing, tearing, and planting bombs inside until the machines collapsed in fire. What terrified the galaxy most was how fast humans learned. In months, they adapted to weapons that took empires centuries to master. Soldiers carried rifles rebuilt with human adjustments that made them deadlier than before. Engineers built communication devices from scraps that could jam Dominion signals. Even simple farmers learned how to sabotage engines, drain supplies, and vanish before the enemy could strike back. Humanity's strength was not only in survival, it was in turning weakness into power. The Battle of Cairo revealed this truth to the galaxy. Dominion forces expected a quick strike, but the city had been transformed into a maze of traps. Bridges collapsed under tanks. Streets were flooded to strand machines. Rooftops became nests for snipers. What was once a human city had turned into a fortress of defiance. For every Dominion victory, they paid with a cost so high it shook their armies. By the end, the city still stood, and the humans still fought. Reports spread across the stars faster than the Dominion could suppress them. Alien merchants whispered in marketplaces of humans who drank poison water yet lived, who walked through firestorms and returned scarred but alive, who lost everything and yet stood again. Empires that once laughed at Earth now grew quiet. They began to wonder, if humans could resist the Dominion, what would happen if they turned their eyes outward? The Dominion leadership panicked. They sent elite squads bred from the hardest worlds, soldiers trained to crush resistance with fear. But when they faced humans, they found no fear to exploit. The humans did not cower at the sight of towering alien warriors. Instead, they fought harder. One report described human soldiers who laughed even while wounded, their broken bodies still dragging weapons toward the enemy. Dominion commanders called them insane. The galaxy began calling them unstoppable. Something else was spreading as, well, hope. Across the stars, species once enslaved by the Dominion began to whisper that if humans could fight, maybe they too could resist. Rebellions sparked in hidden corners. Small uprisings lit fires that the Dominion struggled to extinguish. Humanity had never asked for allies, but without realizing it, their defiance was awakening courage in others. Back on Earth, the people carried no illusions. They knew they were bleeding. Cities lay in ruins, families were torn apart. Yet they did not surrender. They built shelters inside mountains, raised crops in war zones, and carried their children through fire. What shocked alien spies was that humans still found time to sing, to laugh, to share food, and to dream. Even in the worst destruction, they clung to life with stubborn joy. A Dominion fleet commander once said, "We are not fighting soldiers. We are fighting the planet itself." But he was wrong. They were fighting humanity, the true product of Earth. Storms, beasts, and chaos had trained them since birth, shaping them into something the galaxy had never seen before. The siege of Sydney proved it again. Dominion warships unleashed firepower, meant to erase the city in hours. Yet when the smoke cleared, the humans were still there, hiding in tunnels, emerging at night, striking and vanishing. The Dominion held the skies, but humans owned the ground. Weeks passed, then months, until Dominion soldiers grew afraid to step outside their camps. To them, the city was no longer a battlefield. It was a trap waiting to close. The galaxy began to accept a truth they once denied. Humans were not just survivors of a death world, they were the embodiment of it. Every part of Earth's danger lived in them. The storm that strikes without warning, the beast that hunts with patience, the fire that spreads when least expected. To fight them was to fight nature itself. By now, even the Dominion's allies questioned the war. Some withdrew support quietly. Others warned that continuing would only unleash greater disaster. But the Dominion leadership was blinded by pride. They could not imagine losing to a species they once considered fragile. So, they kept sending more, and the humans kept turning every assault into a lesson. The galaxy no longer asked why Earth was feared. The answer stood in every report, in every scarred survivor, in every fallen Dominion soldier. Earth was feared because it was a death world. And from this death world came humans, creatures who refused to surrender, who turned weakness into strength, and who fought with a spirit the galaxy had never known. The Dominion had lost more than ships and soldiers. They had lost something far greater, the illusion of control. For centuries, they believed their empire could not be challenged, but Earth had shown them otherwise. What was once a single conquest had become a nightmare that drained their fleets, shattered their pride, and shook their rule across the stars. And yet, the humans had not stopped. Even after years of war, when other species would have collapsed, humanity grew sharper, stronger, and more united. They no longer fought only to defend their planet. They fought to prove that no one could break them. In the ruins of old London, leaders gathered from across continents. They were soldiers, scientists, farmers, and survivors, all carrying the weight of war. Together, they formed a council not of kings or empires, but of survivors who spoke for humanity itself. Their message was simple: Earth would never bow. They would fight until the last breath, until no Dominion ship remained in their skies. The humans were not alone anymore. Whispers had turned into action. Across the galaxy, smaller species rose in rebellion. The Goran miners sabotaged Dominion supply chains. The fragile Tyrellians, once slaves, struck down their masters. Even species who had never fought before began to resist. Humanity's defiance had spread like fire through dry grass, unstoppable and fierce. The Dominion realized too late that their war with Earth was no longer just about one planet. It had become the spark for galaxy-wide resistance. But still, the Dominion threw their fleets against Earth. They wanted to crush humanity before its example grew too strong. They sent their largest armada yet, thousands of ships, determined to erase the blue world from existence. When the armada entered the solar system, the humans had little to meet them. Their ships were small, their fleets scattered. But they had something no empire ever had: unshakable determination. From the orbit of Mars, from the hidden bases on the Moon, from the oceans of Earth itself, they rose, not as an empire, not as conquerors, but as survivors defending their home. The battle raged across the void. Dominion ships unleashed firepower that shattered asteroids and lit the skies of Earth in burning streaks. Human ships were torn apart by the dozens. But every time one fell, another charged forward. Pilots rammed into enemy vessels. Soldiers strapped explosives to their suits and hurled themselves into engines. Civilians on Earth launched missiles from hidden silos, striking ships miles above the ground. It was chaos. But it was human chaos. And in that chaos, humanity thrived. On the ground, Earth itself became a battlefield once more. Cities burned, oceans boiled, mountains shook. Yet humans kept fighting. Dominion soldiers were trapped in jungles, lost in deserts, drowned in rivers that humans used as weapons. Every piece of land became a blade in human hands. And then came the moment that echoed across the stars. A group of human engineers, working in secret for months, revealed their creation. It was not a massive warship or a superweapon. It was something far more dangerous. They had learned to twist Dominion technology into something new, something unpredictable. A weapon made not with perfection, but with desperation and imagination. It did not look like much rusted metal, wires exposed, but when unleashed, it tore through a Dominion flagship, splitting the giant vessel in two. The galaxy froze. Humanity had not just resisted. Humanity had created something new, something no one else had thought possible. And they had done it while under siege, with scraps and ruins as their tools. The Dominion faltered. Their fleets broke formation. For the first time, their commanders doubted victory. And in that doubt, humans struck harder. They pushed with everything they had, not because they thought they could win, but because surrender was never in their nature. To the galaxy, it became clear. Earth was not simply defending itself. Earth was changing the rules of war. Humans had shown that survival was not about strength or technology. It was about spirit. And no empire could crush that spirit. By the time the battle ended, Earth still burned, but it had not fallen. The Dominion had been forced to retreat once again. Their largest fleet had been broken by the smallest world. The council chambers across the stars trembled with one question: if humanity could do this while trapped on a single planet, what would they become once they reached the stars? The answer frightened everyone. And it was the reason Earth was feared. Not for its storms, not for its beasts, not even for its gravity, but for the humans it created, humans who refused to die, humans who turned every weakness into strength, humans who made the impossible possible. The Dominion had never faced such humiliation. Their empire, once feared across the stars, had been shaken by a single world. Earth still smoldered, its cities scarred and its skies filled with ash, but it had not fallen. Humanity, battered yet unbroken, stood defiant. And the galaxy watched in silence, wondering what would come next. The humans gathered in what remained of Geneva, turning ruins into a council chamber. Representatives from every continent arrived, not with crowns or jewels, but with scars and worn uniforms. They were not leaders of nations anymore. They were voices of survival, speaking for a species that had endured the fire of war and refused to be erased. Their decision was simple. Earth would no longer wait for the galaxy to decide its fate. Humanity would rise, not just as survivors, but as a force that shaped the stars. The Dominion had tried to enslave them, to erase them, and in doing so, had forged them into something unstoppable. At the same time, rebellions flared across the galaxy. Inspired by humanity's defiance, species who had lived in chains now struck back against their masters. Dominion supply lines collapsed. Fleets were forced to divide. The once unstoppable empire now found itself burning from within, while humans, the very ones they tried to crush, had become the spark for its downfall. The galaxy whispered new names for Earth: the Anvil World, the Cradle of Defiance, the Deathworld. But above all, they spoke of humans, the children of chaos, the warriors of survival. No longer were they seen as weak or primitive. They were seen as the one species no empire could break. Stories spread like fire. A soldier who dragged himself across a battlefield with broken legs, detonating charges beneath an enemy tank. A pilot who flew a burning plane into orbit, destroying a Dominion cruiser before it could fire on civilians. A group of children who led refugees through mountains in the dead of night, saving hundreds with nothing but courage. To aliens, these stories were legends. To humans, they were only life. When Dominion commanders finally gathered in their grand hall, their voices shook with fear. They spoke of humans not as enemies, but as nightmares. "They do not surrender," one whispered. "They do not break," said another. And the oldest among them added, "They do not die like the rest of us. Even in death, they win." The Dominion could no longer hide the truth. They had lost. Not because humans destroyed their fleets, but because humans had proven that spirit and will could defeat empires. The war ended not with treaties or surrender, but with silence, the silence of an empire retreating, the silence of a galaxy holding its breath. For the first time, humanity looked outward, not with fear, but with purpose. They had survived their trial by fire, and now their eyes turned to the stars. They built ships from wreckage, engines from stolen parts, weapons from imagination. They were not polished, not perfect, but they worked. And with every launch, the galaxy trembled, because it knew what was coming. The lesson was clear. Earth was feared not, because it was a death world filled with storms, beasts, and poison skies. Earth was feared because it created humans, creatures who turned struggle into strength, who laughed at despair, who fought with hearts that refused to yield. The galaxy had seen many warriors, many conquerors, many empires, but never before had it seen a species like this. A species that could take the weight of destruction and use it to climb higher. A species that did not just survive death worlds, they were born from them. And so the story of Earth spread to every corner of the stars. To some, it was a warning. Never provoke humans, for they will rise from ashes stronger than before. To others, it was hope. If humans could stand against the Dominion, maybe anyone could stand against tyranny. But to humanity itself, it was not legend. It was simply who they were: survivors, fighters, dreamers, builders. A species that turned fear into fire, and fire into light. The war had ended, but something far greater had begun. Humanity was no longer trapped on Earth. Humanity was stepping into the galaxy. And the galaxy, for the first time in its long history, was afraid.